afternoon and welcome to the Midday News Report on the Wind Communications Network. I'm Keisha Charles. Thanks for joining us. In our top story, ministers were warned that misconduct would not be tolerated. This according to Minister of State in the Office of the Prime Minister, Roger Samuel. He made the comment in reference to the cabinet reshuffle and the firing of Junior Minister of National Security Colin Partap and Justice Minister Herbert Volney. Samuel says the Prime Minister advised that she would act in the best interest of the country, and she did.
I remember the Prime Minister kept reiterating before that, even at some of the public meetings, even at our anniversary celebration since May, that she would make decisions, and some of the decisions that she will make may not be the decisions that everybody expects to do. She will shift her government and her cabinet the way she sees fit, and that's her responsibility. Yeah. And she has done that, and she has kept her word with regards to how she intends to operate and how she intends to function and govern her government.
He says although the Prime Minister was forced to make difficult decisions, she still has the support of the cabinet. According to Samuel, there is no malice behind the PM's actions in shifting or removing anyone.
We may call it tough love, but in the midst of it, her graciousness is still there. Yeah. And there is no bitterness or hatred with regards to anything. I do not think that there is some kind of animosity when somebody is shifted or removed. Right. It is how we see things and how we perceive things.
And the government has inherited a budget deficit of $7.5 billion from the PNM. This according to Minister of Trade, Industry and Investment, Vasant Bharat, while speaking during the budget debate this morning. He says along with this came a 16% inflation rate.
Having inherited inflationary pressures at 16%, it was actually in 2010, when we came into office, inflation was running at 16%. It was the highest since 1987 in this country, the highest for 23 years. And in addition to that, many people fail to remember that the budget deficit that we are currently working with, $7.5 billion, was inherited from the PNM government. It didn't fall from the sky and didn't come into place during the last 3 years. It came in, we inherited it in 2010.
Says this was not the first deficit left by the PNM government. In fact, the minister says under the former administration, oil, gas and energy prices were at an all-time high. He says given the statistics, the budget presented by Finance Minister Larry Hawaii is one of the best.
Since 1993, that this country suffered what was called negative growth. Negative growth of 3.5%, Madam Vice President. We must take all of that into context to in determining the budgetary statement that Minister Hawaii has presented here for the period, the fiscal year 2013. We must also remind ourselves, lest we forget, that revenues were at an all-time high. Gas revenues were, gas prices were $13.06. Oil prices were at a high of $147, Madam Vice President. And in fact, energy revenues was at an all-time high of $29.9 billion.
According to Bharat, the extravagance of the PNM has resulted in the current government paying off debts for the next 17 years.
We are all aware of the extravagance of the Brian Lara Stadium, the Scarborough Hospital, the waterfront projects that we have here that we will be paying off over the next 17 years.
And in more news, the Office of the Prime Minister functions as an overseer for all ministries. This according to Minister of State in the Office of the Prime Minister, Roger Samuel. While speaking on the Sunrise Morning program, he says the functions governing the Office of the PM are important to the entire nation.
So the Office of the Prime Minister has tremendous responsibilities as the engine room of governance, our monitoring and evaluation unit that monitors and evaluates the performances of ministries and ministers. The relationships between the Office of the Prime Minister and all ministries are quite integral. Again, I mentioned about our monitoring and research and evaluation unit, and that unit at the Office of the Prime Minister is responsible for the monitoring of the performances of ministries and ministers. All ministries? All ministries. I see. So the connectivity between the Office of the Prime Minister and all ministries continues to play an integral role in the governance process.
According to Samuel, the commitments made by ministries are closely monitored by the Office of the Prime Minister to ensure that they are implemented. He showered praises on Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessor for her leadership ability and the trust she places in his staff.
She's the type of person that does not try to micromanage what happens at the Office of the Prime Minister.
Right. We
have the responsibilities and the trust is there. And that is important to me, how much the Prime Minister would trust me to give me the freedom to function and operate. And she knows that my responsibility is to ensure that her job is the way it should be, and that the things that ought to be operating in the Office of the Prime Minister are functioning to the magnitude it should be functioning.
And the government's plans to increase food production seems to have hit a wall as they cannot find the people needed for this initiative. There were plans to utilize former Caroni workers through the distribution of lands, yet reports indicated last night that many failed to collect their leases. Food Production Minister Devant Maharaj, speaking on the Sunrise Morning program, gave merit to this report.
You can't find some of these Caroni people to acquire their leases. How true is this?
Well, it's indeed sad but true.
He said his latest reports indicated more than half of the leases were not collected.
That approximately slightly over 600 leases have been cleared, and attempts for me to distribute all as quickly as possible. However, only between 250 to 300 had actually been given out, and the rest of the people just failed to respond to the advert or to whatever call for me.
He said he is now forced to find other means to distribute the leases to these persons. And in more news, today is World Food Day, and the Minister of Food Production advocates for this year's theme, agricultural cooperatives. According to the United Nations, one step towards achieving food security is to support and invest in farmer and producer organizations. They say this move can increase food production, create jobs, and increase farmers' livelihoods in all agricultural sectors. Food Production Minister Devant Maharaj said on the Sunrise Morning Show that it would benefit farmers if they rethink their agricultural approach.
However, as we become more modernized and more savvy, I think the cooperatives have lost its interest as modernization is seen. Perhaps we need to revisit institutions such as cooperatives and get people excited about it again once they adhere to the rules of the cooperative.
And while the ministry does not have much planned for today, the minister indicated that it is a more profitable move.
That farmers tend to have a good experience working together as a group once they have a shared goal, and it's more beneficial to the individuals that form part of the cooperative or association than if they were working in isolation of themselves.
In other news, a 13-year-old girl was reportedly sexually assaulted and buggered by a close male relative. It was reported that the teenager, who lived with her foster parents in Caroni for several years, was visited regularly by the relative. Between January and October of this year, the girl reported that she was raped twice during these visits and on one occasion buggered while out with the man for a drive. Her foster parents informed the police, and after investigations by Senior Superintendent Dulalchan, Superintendent Abraham, and officers from the Caroni Police Station, headed by Sergeant Gobin, the 42-year-old male relative was arrested today. Yesterday, that is. He is expected to appear before a Chaguanas magistrate tomorrow charged with the offences. In other news, a 22-year-old man was held with a gun and other ammunition last night. Sources say the Central Division Task Force, headed by Corporal Ken Ali, were on patrol on the Couva Main Road around 8:30 last night. Upon reaching Casey Confectionery, they saw a man with a plastic bag in his hand. The man ran when he saw the officers. They held him and searched his bag. They found a .38 revolver and several rounds of .38 special ammunition in a mosquito coil box. The Couva resident was arrested and is expected to appear before a Couva magistrate tomorrow. The operation was supervised by Senior Superintendent Dulalchan and Superintendent Abraham. In more news, as the world celebrates Poverty Eradication Day tomorrow, the Regional Social and Human Development Council of Chaguanas hosts a panel discussion in promoting the cause. With this year's theme as Ending the Violence of Extreme Poverty, the Council aims to promote both development and the building of peace. In an interview with 7 Eyewitness News last evening, Noreen Dancliffe Furlong, a supervisor attached to the Ministry of Social Development, outlined the focus of the program.
Our focus groups would be schools and children at CXC level and lower 6 and upper 6. It will take the form of a panel discussion. The panel will consist of Dr. Asha Cambon of ECLAC, Dr. Kenneth Niles, a lecturer in aging and a pastor at the university and a pastor, and Mr. Husani, an ex-principal and the representative on the Trinidad and Tobago Commission for UNESCO.
Program held under the Ministry of People and Social Development, along with the RSHDC, hopes to build capacities of young people, as they view poverty not simply as a lack of economic resources, but also a lack of knowledge and skills. And with the implementation of certain initiatives, they have been tackling this problem.
That's the microenterprise grant. And I say grant and not loan because it isn't. They don't have to repay it. What happens is that we work with individuals who have a good business idea but cannot approach the bank for funding because they probably don't have the collateral that the bank would be asking for. We also work along persons in trying to keep proper records when the business gets going. And the business can span from selling of clothing, making clothing, to somebody wanting a worker because the grant amount is $5,000. The regional micro-project grant is $50,000, and that is available to groups in the area.
The event is scheduled for October 17th at Plaza de Montrose between the hours of 9 a.m. and 12 noon. And a number of schools have collaborated in the production of a Greek play. The members who come from primary and secondary schools call themselves the Mixed Choir, and they will present their musical from Friday. Michael Hudlin of Presentation College, San Fernando, and Harmony Farrell of Holy Faith Convent Pinal spoke on the morning show. They believe the arts can be a solution for crime and delinquency, which is rampant in the country.
We have to learn how to interact and cooperate a lot with people, and it's not anything really violent or malevolent or anything like that. It's everything is done for a good reason.
Yes.
And is done with good tactics.
Right.
The musical starts on Friday, 19th October at 7:30 p.m. and will continue until Sunday, when it will begin at 6 p.m. And that brings us to the end of our midday news report on the WIN Communications Network. I'm Keisha Charles. Do have a safe and pleasant day.